Factors determining supply. Price of resource and input cost. Any change in the cost of an input used to produce a good, such as raw materials or labor, will affect supply. A rise in the cost of an input will cause a fall in supply at all price levels because the good has become expensive to produce or price of inputs influence the cost of production. On the other hand, a fall in the cost of an input will cause an increase in supply at all price levels. It is because if the price of cost of inputs increases enough, the marginal cost may become higher than the price, that is marginal revenue, and the firm may not be as profitable as it could be. If a firm has no control over the price, the only solution is to cut production and lower marginal cost until marginal cost equals the lower price. Supply falls at each price and the supply curve shifts to the left. Expected future prices. Expectation about future prices influence supply. For example, a severe frost that wipes out Florida's citrus crop doesn't change the production of orange juice today, but it does decrease production later in the year when the current crop would not have been harvested. Sellers of orange juice will expect the price to rise in the future. To get the higher future price, some sellers will increase the inventory of frozen juice, and this action decreases the supply of juice today. Number of sellers. The greater the number of sellers in the market, the larger is the supply. For example, many sellers have developed springs and water bottling plants in the United States, and the supply of bottled water has increased. Technology. Input costs can drop as well. Advances in technology, for example, can lower production cost in many industries. Sophisticated robots have replaced many workers on assembly lines and allowed manufacturers to spend less on salaries. Computers have simplified tasks and cut costs in fields as diverse as journalism and architecture. Email that can be sent and received in an instant can replace slowly delivered letters and expensive long-distance phone calls. Technology lowers cost and increases supply at all price levels. This effect is seen in a rightward shift in the supply curve. Productivity. Productivity is output per unit of input. An increase in productivity lowers the cost of producing the good and increases its supply. A decrease in productivity has the opposite effect and decreased supply. Natural events such as severe weather and earthquakes decrease productivity and decreases supply. Government's influence on supply. The government has the power to affect the supply of many goods. By raising or lowering the cost of producing goods, the government can encourage or discourage an entrepreneur or an industry within this country or abroad. One method used by governments to affect supply is to give subsidies to the producers of a good, particularly food. A subsidy is a government payment that supports a business or market. The government often pays a producer a set of subsidy for each unit of a good produced. European governments protect farms so that some will be available to grow food in case imports are ever cut off. Government in developing countries often subsidize manufacturers to protect young growing industries from strong foreign competition. Taxes. A government can reduce the supply of some goods by placing an excise tax on them. An excise tax is a tax on the production or sale of a good. An excise tax increases production cost by adding an extra cost for each unit sold. Excise taxes are sometimes used to discourage the sale of goods that the government thinks are harmful to the public good, like cigarettes, alcohol, and high pollutant gasoline. An excise tax causes the supply of a good to decrease at all price levels due to increase in costs. The supply curve shifts to the left. Regulation. Regulation is government intervention through indirect means in a market that affects price, quantity, or quality of a good, whereas subsidies and excise taxes represents ways that government directly affects supply by changing revenue or production costs. Starting in 1970, the federal government required car manufacturers to install technology to reduce pollution from auto exhaust. For example, new cars had to use lead-free fuel because scientists linked health problems to lead in gasoline. Regulations such as these increase the cost of manufacturing cars and reduce the supply. The supply curve shifted to the left. These are the factors that affect supply. Thanks for watching.